Right, let's get into some news. Republicans in the US House of Representatives have announced plans to introduce a sanctions bill against Turkey for its offensive in Syria this week. And Congressman of and daughter, offspring of Darth Vader, Liz Cheney, said Turkey must face serious consequences for mercilessly attacking our Kurdish allies. Ooh, what about mercilessly attacking Iraq or Afghanistan or Guatemala or Honduras or Venezuela or Colombia? You get the gist. And it comes as President Donald Trump has said he hoped to mediate the conflict, and Turkey moved into northern Syria on Wednesday after the president pulled US troops out of the area. No coincidence, as he pulls them out, violence escalates. I wonder who did that. Now, critics say the US withdrawal effectively gave Turkey the green light to begin its cross-border assault. No. Which President Tayyip Erdogan says it is to create a safe zone running for 480 kilometres along the Syrian side of the border. Now, Kurdish militias of the Syrian Democratic Forces control the cross-border areas, and groups Turkey calls terrorists who support an anti-Turkish insurgency. Now, the SDF have been key allies of the United States in the battle allegedly against the Islamic State group, and they say they've been stabbed in the back by the US. Not the government. There are fears the operation could lead to an ethnic cleansing of Kurds and a revive of IS. A group of 29 Republicans in the Democratic-controlled House of Representatives have announced legislation which would impose sanctions on Ankara. If Turkey wants to be treated like an ally, it says, it must begin behaving like one. And they must be sanctioned for their attacks on our Kurdish allies. And Ms. Cheney adds that Congress has had long concerns about the Erdogan regime's cooperation with US adversaries such as Russia. Change the script, will you? Get back in the bunker with your dad. Really, someone shut it up. Of course, there was no mention made of the US troop withdrawal with Mr. Trump. He did say he was going to do it. And twice now, he said in two different countries he's going to withdraw, and then violence escalates. Coincidence? I think not. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said there is no blackmail in a phone call with Donald Trump that is at the heart of a possible attempt to remove the US president from office. This is not corruption, it was just a call, Mr. Zelensky said on Thursday, and a call prompted a whistleblower complaint and Democratic impeachment inquiry of the Republican president. Trump denies withholding US aid while pressurizing Ukraine to investigate political rival Joe Biden. I don't know why he's bothering. Got no chance of winning anyway. Impeachment is a process by which Congress can vote to oust a president, although it requires support from a majority of both chambers, and as such, it is currently unlikely to pass in the Senate. And speaking to reporters at a news conference in Kiev, Mr. Zelensky said of the 25th of July call with Mr. Trump, there was no blackmail. It was not the subject of our conversation. He said the purpose of the conversation was to arrange a meeting with Mr. Trump, and there were no conditions from the American side. Zelensky also said he does not believe US-Ukraine relations will be affected by the impeachment inquiry. Albania North Macedonia and Serbia have agreed to allow passport-free travel for their citizens by 2021 and a speedier cross-border flow of goods to boost regional economic development. And the president said, we aim to create conditions for people to use only national identification cards for crossing the border. So no more Z-papers, please. And by the end of 2021, all three countries will be involved. And he told a news conference with the prime ministers of Albania and North Macedonia, the move is not a specific requirement of the EU, but comes at a time when there's growing resistance within the bloc to further enlargement. Now, 6 Western Balkan countries, Albania, Bosnia, Kosovo, Montenegro, Macedonia and Serbia, are hoping to join the European Union, and their accession has been slowed down allegedly by Brexit and other factors. Now, the mutual relations of these states are also burdened by the legacy of the wars in the 1990s in the Balkans. Now, hopefully, from my point of view, these countries can get back on their feet and support each other. You have all been played by the same clowns in the Middle East, CIA and NATO. Stop funding them is the answer, and let that region start to teach the world a better way, like they did in the past with the Rus. People raising concerns over social media. I'm not surprised. Social media can be a powerful weapon for truth in the right hands, this article said. Unfortunately, Twitter and Facebook have done their best to keep it out of those hands, and people are starting to call them out for the damage they have done. It's hard to think of a company that's hurt this country more than Twitter, according to Fox News host Tucker Carlson this week in conversation with Congressman Devin Nunes, who is actually suing Twitter for allegedly permitting users to gang up on him. Gang stalking happens a lot. Sounds eerily similar, doesn't it not? And a repeating pattern, if you ask me. And he said, if you look at the hate, division and cruelty that's now common, it wasn't common 10 years ago. Twitter is a huge part of that. Now, the article said Carlson may be unfairly singling Twitter out, Facebook and, to a lesser extent, YouTube, who have also contributed to the rapid deterioration of civil discourse in the US. But as a whole, the major social media platforms are transforming a huge cross-section of America internet traffic into petty groupthink-driven drama factories. Oh my. The media saying what myself and Randy Morgans have been stating for years now, and yet we got lambasted for it. The article went on, worse, the ubiquity has made them all but imperative to anyone who hopes to work in any public-facing profession. After all, only an antisocial person would consciously avoid social media. I think they were saying that in irony. Twitter and Facebook keep users on their platform by serving up more of what the user likes. No, it doesn't. And the article says, creating an echo chamber. Did Marley write this? Oh my. That can be impenetrable depending on how comfortable the user is with unfamiliar ideas. And it said if one doesn't take care to interact with users elsewhere on the political spectrum, it's easy to believe that the entire country wants Donald Trump impeached, or that the average Iranian is hungry for regime change. Yes, it's all part of the Langley NSA algorithms nonsense. Pushing one, knocking down another. That's how it works. Now, studies have confirmed that the echo chamber phenomenon is strongest when it comes to political content, and users can make this worse by muting or blocking those they disagree with. When they do finally collide with reality, it was said that the awakening is seldom pleasant. Yes, we know that all too well. The acting head of US Homeland Security, Kevin McAleenan, has resigned after 6 months in the post. And in a tweet, President Trump said Mr. McAleenan wanted to spend more time with his family. An awful lot of people in the government who suddenly like their family, given a whole lot of them have other interests, shall we say. And he said his replacement would be named sometime next week. McAleenan is the fourth person to serve as the head of Homeland Security during Mr. Trump's tenure, and he's overseen the president's tough policies aimed at curbing immigration across the Mexican border. However, analysts have described a turbulent relationship between the two, and Mr. McAleenan has criticised the tone of the immigration debate. Now, just recently, Mr. McAleenan was shouted off stage by student protesters at a university in Washington, D.C. Where are we next? Avoiding dangerous global heating. Ooh, we're all going to die again. Will require governments around the world to impose stringent taxes on fossil fuel usage that will mean a 43% jump in household energy bills over the next decade, according to the IMF. What the average person doesn't know is the IMF are telling countries to push up energy prices, as a portion of that increase is going to them. Oops. And it's their new way to get funding along with the UN, and has got nothing to do with global warming or climate change. Now, the Washington-based fraudsters, IMF, said the battle against climate change, let's all eat babies, oh dear, could only be won if the average carbon tax levied by its members states increased from, listen closely, $2 a tonne to $75 a tonne. Really? Not $2 to $3 or $2 to $4. No, $75 a tonne. Do they think we're all stupid? And the IMF said governments worried about a political backlash against big increases in the cost of heating homes and motoring should use the extra revenue raised from the tax to compensate consumers. I thought we had to pay for it. Yeah. You have 1% back in your taxes. Meanwhile, we'll increase your energy bills by 50%. And they went on to limit global warming, which has already been debunked, to 2%, not 2%, 2 centigrade or less, the level deemed safe by science, by science, bought and paid for grant people, the majority of which know jack and just repeat scripts given to them. Large emitting countries need to take ambitious actions, according to IMF economists. For example, they should introduce a carbon tax set to rise quickly to $75 a tonne in 2030. That date again. Their agenda, not ours. We'll have a different agenda for them long before then. This would mean house electrical bills would go up by 43% cumulatively over the next decade on average. more in countries that still rely heavily on coal in electricity generation, less elsewhere. Gasoline will go up 14% or more on average, and calculations by the IMF economists show that a $75 a tonne carbon tax would also lead, once inflation has been taken into account, to an average 214% increase in the cost of coal, 68% increase in national natural gas, and for the UK the increases would be 157% for coal, 51% for natural gas, 43% for electricity, and 8% for petrol. Details of the IMF's call for a much bigger carbon tax came in a chapter from the organisation's biannual fiscal monitor released before its publication next week, and the IMF said it was calling for a substantially higher carbon tax because the carbon dioxide from fossil fuels accounted for almost 2/3 of global greenhouse gas and was the most immediately practical to control. Fine. If global energy is such an issue, make the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Bushes, and other elite families that have reaped vast profits off this energy cartel. If there's an issue, it is they who should pay to repair any damage that has been caused to this planet by that cartel, not we. The Facebook fake checker, they call it fact, but it's fake. Very selective in the stories that they pick, generally rubbish and little to no relevance. But the editor-in-chief, Alan Duke, co-founded Lead Stories after ending a 26-year career with CNN, where he mainly covered entertainment, current affairs and politics. And then you have Martin Schenk, who is described as the resident expert on fake news and hoax websites. And he likes to go beyond just debunking trending fake news stories, which is endlessly fascinated by the dazzling variety of psychological and technical tricks used by the people and networks who intentionally spread made-up things on the internet. Is he talking about the internet, or is he talking about the portal people? Seriously. These people are deluded. Federal prosecutors have filed multiple charges against a 23-year-old South Korean man accused of running what they call the world's largest dark web child porn marketplace. Connect the dots. The site is now shut, called Welcome to Video, contained more than 200,000 unique videos and nearly 8 terabytes of data showing sex acts involving children, toddlers, and infants. According to an 18-page criminal indictment that was unsealed on Wednesday, and it also processed 7,300 Bitcoin transactions worth more than $730,000. Now, at a press conference Wednesday morning, US officials said 337 suspected users of that site had been arrested worldwide to date. The website ran solely on the dark web, a section of the internet that can only be accessed via a Tor browser or or a high street bank, which is designed to protect users' tracks online and obscure digital footprints. Now, users were purchasing videos using cryptocurrency, and an annual membership was priced at 0.03 bitcoins. At a current exchange rates, that's around $300. Perhaps that's why the Bitcoin people thought about when they said they were getting around the system. Who knows? One would suggest with dark web entities, this is the tip of the iceberg.